Today on Not Sam Wrestling, Josh Mathews from Impact Wrestling joins me to talk about what he's been doing, what he's doing in that company, what life has been like since leaving WWE, and a whole lot more. We're going to redo Raw in the state of wrestling. Katie Linendoll joins me. This is Not Sam Wrestling.
This is Not Sam Wrestling.
Introducing your host from New York, here is Sam Roberts.
Busy one today. Busy. Oh, I just got so excited scrolling through my Instagram accounts. I love my Instagram. I got 3 Instagram accounts I jump back and forth in between. Of course, my Instagram account, Not Sam. I have Not Sam Wrestling on Instagram for the show. I should do more with that, and I will. And then I have Not Shoes _IG, which is my Instagram account simply for my sneaker collection. I don't even think my face is on there. You may prefer that one. It's just my sneakers, but the reason why I bring up Instagram, I got all excited. I follow Chalkline on at least 2 of my Instagram accounts, maybe all 3. I love Chalkline. And they just teased their Becky Lynch jacket. I'm looking at my Sasha Banks jacket right now. Got my Not Sam jacket on my chair, which you can only get by being a supporter on Patreon. My NWO black and white jacket is over here in the studio. NWO black and red jacket is upstairs. They previewed the Becky Lynch jacket. I'm very excited. I got to get my hands on a Becky Lynch jacket. I can't wait. Well, welcome to the show. I'm super excited about this one. First of all, it's been a big week for content over here in Not Sam World. Of course, for you non-wrestling fans, the YouTube channel is updated. Sam Roberts Now, Black Friday show went up. We'll probably have another one this week or over the weekend or something like that. And in the wrestling world, for all you Not Sam shills over on Patreon, we did an intro show, a pre-show for Starrcade, live on video. So all you, I think, Hall of Fame and superstar level shills got to watch along with that. And for all the shills, a new episode of Captive Audience went up. New Blood Rising. I think it was New Blood Rising. New Blood Rising went up. I made my wife Jess watch New Blood Rising. So if you want to watch along with us, become a Not Sam shill over at patreon.com/NotSamWrestling. Thank you for all of the great feedback on the Wade Keller interview. I had a blast doing that and just kind of jumping into that world. You know, I think that the criticisms of wrestling news reporting and websites and stuff like that have had a pretty active place here on this show. And it's certainly on a lot of different podcasts, you know, whether it's Pritchard or Bischoff, you know, people within the industry talk about the criticisms of it. But, you know, there are guys like Wade Keller and Dave Meltzer and people like that have been around for decades now doing this, working in this field. And regardless of what you think, if somebody's able to make a successful living writing about wrestling since the late 80s, I would say it's worth learning from their success on some level. So it was great to get Wade Keller's perspective on anything, coming from somebody who actually looks at what he does as true journalism and somebody who's done it as long as he has. I just thought his story was super fascinating. If for any reason you skipped last week, I would recommend going back and taking a listen because it was an interview that you probably won't get anywhere else on any other wrestling podcast. And it's kind of, I think, what makes Not Sam Wrestling unique. So check that out. And you're not going to get this week's interview on any other wrestling podcast either. This week, my guest is Josh Mathews. I've known Josh forever. I met him, I don't even remember which. It might have been right after the John Cena Rock WrestleMania. You know, it could have been right after WrestleMania, maybe the first one, 28, maybe? I don't know. I've known him for a long time. When he was local, we used to hang out pretty often. Since he's been in Impact for the last several years, living in Nashville, and then since he's moved. But I only get to see him very infrequently. And I saw him in January, not in January, in maybe August. Whenever they did Bound for Glory, I saw him. And it was the first time in a while, but it was good to hang out with him. And I just decided this week we should really get an update on everything that's going on with Josh Mathews. He's been a controversial figure at times because of his outlandish nature on social media and his high opinion of himself, which, by the way, I know you maybe want to believe that it's just a wrestling character. That's true, Josh Mathews. That's real Josh Mathews. Just so you know, the unlikable part of him, it's part of what makes him likable to me. I don't know what it is. He can pull it off. Most people can't. I wanted to get an update from Josh Mathews, not only with what he's doing in TNA, but in his life. He was in a much happier place than the last time I saw him, and I thought that he'd be great to talk to. So this is another interview that I think you're only going to hear this type of conversation here on Not Sam Wrestling. Enjoy it. We're going to have Katie Linendoll joining me again in State of Wrestling this week. We're going old school, baby. Old school. Good. It's good to have good friends here on Not Sam Wrestling. Katie Linendoll soon, but first, my good friend, ladies and gentlemen, today's interview, Mr. Josh Mathews.
The Not Sam Wrestling interview.
Back on the podcast for the first time in a very long time, in a surprisingly long time, ladies and gentlemen, one of the most hated men in the history of wrestling commentary, Josh Mathews. Josh, welcome.
I almost was going to say like, oh, I don't know why people hate, but I get it. I know why they hate me. It's no big deal at this point.
So when you went through that period where you were embracing the fact that people hated you, what was that like for you? Because I felt like, you went through the whole thing of first just calling yourself the number one commentator of all time and like throwing other commentators under the bus. And I read it and I was like, oh, Josh, at first I was like, Josh is screwing around. And then I was like, oh, clearly Josh is doing a storyline. But there's something about you that people online were like, no, this is the real Josh Mathews. And I really hate this guy.
Well, I think there was a combination of so many different things, right? Like emotionally, if we're being like honest at this point, I think I can be honest at this point. Like, I was upset that I didn't have my home any longer after being there for over a decade and didn't really know how to go through those emotions. So my initial reaction was, well, I'm the best and what a huge mistake and all of that. And then it became a storyline, right? And we went through the match and Slammiversary, and now I think looking back, like it's probably not the way I would have handled it now. But I feel like I had to go through all of that. I'm in such a different place than when I first started with Impact, and my relationship with WWE ended. I'm so happy with where I am in life right now that, looking back, okay, I probably shouldn't have said I was the greatest wrestling announcer of all time. Like, I probably shouldn't have been so defiant about the way I felt about that. I don't think embarrassed is the right word, but I think I would have handled it much differently had I known, hey, man, in a few years, like, you're going to meet the love of your life and you're going to have a great family and you're going to have all these things that you didn't even know existed before. And have my life change so much.
And I also feel like the rule of thumb is in wrestling, if it becomes a storyline that people buy into, it's all worth it in the end. Like the fact that the whole thing became a storyline means that, can you really regret doing it if it turned into something that made money for the company eventually? Do you know what I mean?
Well, I hated it at times, and at times I really liked it. So it was such a catch-22, like the fact that I got to have a match on a pay-per-view and do a swanton bomb in India.
Uh-huh.
Those things were fun, and looking back, like I'll always remember those and having to have a match that people liked and thought was fun. But the Twitter stuff and the back and forth and the being so outlandish, some of those times were like a little hard and thinking like, I don't know if this is like the right thing, and having conversations, with people who I considered like mentors in this business, like people like Taz, who at the time was like, look, man, at any time you can say, this is all storyline. I don't really feel, you know what I mean? Like, and get yourself out of it if you feel it's going too far. So always keep that in mind. But, I think at the end, everything worked out the way it should have. I'm trying to become that trusted voice that I didn't know I needed to be in order to be the straight play-by-play announcer. So I'm hoping that's sort of coming back in this year in 2018.
Yeah, I feel like, and we hung out a little bit when you guys were in town for Bound for Glory, and I definitely feel like you're in such a better place than you were when you first left WWE and went over to Impact Wrestling and everything. And I think that that's kind of natural, right? Like, I think that the fact that you were in WWE from the time that you were basically a kid, like, you didn't mature as an adult before you got to WWE. So that was really all you knew of adult working life. And then it's going to take a couple years when you leave something like that to figure out even who you are. Is that right?
Yeah, it is. And the funny thing is how much I took for granted or didn't really appreciate the work that was done and had been paved to, hey, we're going to have a pay-per-view in Chicago and have that thing sell out in a day. It's just, we went on sale for Homecoming on Monday, and I get an email every time a ticket gets sold, and I get so excited and trying to fill that building. But to do everything to give everything of yourself to try to get people there, to try to help something grow. For how many years did I walk into a building and, okay, we're sold out? How many tens of thousands of people are in this building? And you don't truly appreciate it unless you're doing the actual work. Like, I want to go back and thank Vince McMahon for doing what he did. And I can't imagine how many hours and time he gave up to build the empire that he's built. And then now to be in another company to try to do anywhere close to that, from marketing efforts to entertainment to everything that we're doing. It's just, it's work. It's work 24 hours a day. And to be able to get up every morning and be motivated to do it is it's fulfilling at the end of the day. It's also tiring.
I'm sure. I mean, yeah, it's a lot different from just going and broadcasting. And I don't know if people really have a full grasp on what you do over at Impact Wrestling, but I mean, what's your official title? Because you're doing, and I watched you're doing pretty much everything from not only wrangling talent, but wrangling talent and then also directing them. And also, by the way, writing and also figuring out what the slogan's going to be with the network and getting on the phone with the network. And this is all happening all at the same time. I watched you as you juggled every responsibility that I could imagine being on the outside looking in. What's your title and what are some of the responsibilities that you're now filling at Impact Wrestling that people might not realize that you're at least a part of?
I think my official title, I'd have to look at my contract, but I think it's VP of digital content, which when I signed that deal, like, that's really all I was doing, but it was like every digital platform. So it was Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, handling all of them. And then as the company's grown, thankfully with with Anthem coming in, other people have come in and taken over some of those roles. So I sort of morphed into marketing. And so the only department that I don't touch is creative. But Sanjay Dutt, who's the creative director and works with a great creative team with Scott and Don and Jimmy Jacobs, Sanjay and I talk roughly 400 times a day. And so after they get done meeting creatively, he and I will talk about, okay, what's our marketing hook for every possible angle on the show. And I work with graphics, and our graphics designer is in the UK. So he's 5 hours ahead right now 4 hours since we moved our clocks. So my day starts at about 4 a.m. With him going through graphics, going through different things, because that's getting his day started at 9. And then with Kevin Sullivan, who's our vice president of production, the three of us will talk and go through things. So that's one aspect of it. It's really, what, and I think we have the best graphics in wrestling. I think that when you look at compared to, not burying anybody, everyone works hard, right? But compared to Ring of Honor's graphics or even WWE's, I think we have the most compelling graphics, for promoting matches and things like that. Marketing for the pay-per-views and for the shows, and yes, talking to the network. And it's just during the course of the day, sometimes I forget what I'm doing. It's okay, wait a second, I just worked on this new t-shirt, but now I have to have a conversation about what our VIP is going to look like for Homecoming. Okay, now I need to go talk to I need to do voiceovers by noon for the show. So it's a very organized chaos. But I don't think I have it any other way, because I don't think I can just do one thing, right?
Yeah.
I think that was kind of the thing in WWE too. It's okay, you're the announcer or you're the interviewer. The backstage interviewer has got to be the worst job in the world, because you sit around all day to hold a microphone to say what are your thoughts, and then blankly stare off after they walk away. that's the role there, right? And that kind of gets boring. And then, if you're doing the shows, then you're busy all day. But then you get home and, idle time, and idle time's not good for someone like me.
Yeah,
So,
I could attest to that.
Totally not. But I mean, I wake up every day and I grab my laptop and, sometimes my wife will pop in the room and she'll be like, hey, it's like 1:00. You haven't eaten. Like, you got to like stop now for a little bit and come have lunch and do some stuff. So it's just fun sometimes.
Are you surprised when you look now that, well, actually, first of all, when you talk about all those responsibilities and going over every graphic with the person in the UK and then going over every T-shirt and going over all this stuff, do you think that your time in the WWE gave you a detail-oriented mentality, meaning that, like you said, like when you were in WWE, you weren't doing it, but you certainly observed the fact that WWE as a company pays attention to every last detail of every little thing. When you now are given responsibilities and Impact, do you feel like those lessons that you didn't even know you were being taught kind of rub off on you as you realize every single thing that you put out is important?
100%.
Yeah.
And just being on the plane with them or being in meetings with them and seeing the way they worked. And I learned so much from Kevin Dunn that, my wife is in the room right now, but when it comes to work, like, the answer is always yes. Like, you always say yes to work and you'll figure everything else out as you go along. And that's always my take. And she, is always like, when are you going to tell them no? When are you going to say no? When are you going to, like, what else do you do? When are you going to be, when's your plate going to be filled? But, to me, it's like the answer is always yes. We'll figure out a way to do it. And whether that's, working until midnight, like I did last night, or just pushing through everything to get it done. That's just my mentality. And it definitely came from being there for so long. I mean, that was my education. Started there when I was 20. So, I mean, that was my, master course in television and marketing and the way they do things. And, I'll always be grateful for the way I was taught and to, as just a grown up, like to own responsibility for things that, maybe aren't your fault sometimes, but as John Laurinaitis once said, I sometimes you have to eat shit and
how do I put this?
You right. I was trying to PG it up and I couldn't, and you just deal with it. I mean, I got a promo cut on me the other day about something that happened in North Carolina that I had nothing to do with. And I just listened and okay, all right, well, we'll fix it and we'll get it right next time. And you move on and you try to do better the next time. Yeah.
Speaking of your wife, are you surprised at where you're at? Are you surprised at the fact that you are so married into professional wrestling? And when I say so married into professional wrestling, I mean literally. Like, not only in your professional life are you now handling every aspect of a professional wrestling company, but your family is wrestling. Wrestling is everything. Are you surprised that that's the way that things went and that's where we're at in 2018?
I think so. She had an interview this morning, and we were driving home from the gym, and just to hear someone else talking about like wrestling and that being their life and starting out and going and training and wrestling, like it was a little surreal to me to think like, okay, this is, I'm 38 now, and this is the life that we've chosen. And then you're so far deep into it that not like you couldn't get another thing. Like I've had opportunities or the possibilities of opportunities to go and do what I do for, call it a quote unquote normal company. But, to me, like this is just, and you and I have known each other for so long that I don't think I ever hated wrestling, but I think a lot of times I hated some situations that I was in. And now I get to sort of start over and go to independent wrestling shows with Sanjay and learn that side of wrestling that I didn't really get to learn or look at or appreciate for so many years because I was coddled in a $1 billion company.
Yeah. Do you when did you start to realize that you get over your I don't want to say bitterness, like, I mean, that sort of normal thing.
No, it's a good question. I think, a good way to phrase it, I think for a while that was probably the emotion that I felt towards them.
Yeah. Like when did you kind of get past your bitterness and move on to like, you know what, I'm pretty grateful for the lessons that I've learned, and it's time for me to acknowledge that for a lot of years I was coddled, the word you just used. I think that, a lot of people never realize that they were coddled, and they don't realize the good things that came out of an experience that might not be happening anymore, and they just kind of stay in that space of like, well, they screwed me over and blah, blah, blah. To come out on the other side, when did you kind of figure out that you were both coddled and that you had been given a lot of knowledge that maybe at the time you didn't realize?
I think through my wife's eyes, like last year, and watching everything that she did, and seeing her get to compete at All In front of the largest crowd she ever competed in front of, and to see her excitement over that, to get the call to do Mae Young, to sitting down and her and I having a conversation about, okay, should I go to Ring of Honor? Should I do this? Should I like through her excitement, like it made me kind of like go, you know what, like, it was a really long time ago that I was like trying to, it was almost so easy for me to get to where I got to, like in hindsight, because I was so young and it didn't take me years and years to get there. So watching her do it last year and everything she did, I think to me was like it's really hard to do this. Like, it's really hard to get to the level that, one, I got to, and two, that I feel already still at in getting to live a great life and all of those things that come with it. But I think that we, just watching her level of excitement over the last year, and then to realize that that place isn't the end all be all. There's other things out there, that there's people doing amazing things, that we can do amazing things too. And you don't have to be associated with that company. Like, there are opportunities going forward for growth in this space.
And I would also think that watching your wife show up in the Mae Young Classic maybe had you realize that not only are there other things, but, the world, even within the WWE, has become much bigger than it was when you left. I don't think that, the company that you left would have done something like the Mae Young Classic, where they brought in people like your wife who were working in other companies. I think that's the evolution of WWE as well.
Well, yeah, and you look at all the people that were in that tournament, and if I would have still been there, and I would have seen these people in the tournament, okay, 32 people, okay, Mercedes Martinez, who's that? But because I have been outside of there for so long, and I know who Mercedes is, and I have gotten to see her wrestle in Chicago for Shimmer and Rise, and have gotten to talk to her, like, that's really cool that they brought in someone like Mercedes, who has the background that she's had and has been competing for so long. But had I been in that bubble and never left that bubble, I would have looked at these 32 girls and gone, okay, I don't know any of them. Their careers don't mean anything. But now I get to appreciate so much more of what these people have gone through in order to get to where they're trying to get to, that it's a lot cooler for me.
So it's really, it's pretty interesting, because it sounds like with the evolution of Impact and the fact that you guys are now partnering with so many independent companies, and you guys are sending your talent all over the country, and, taping TV and Twitch TV shows all over the country at all these different independent shows, that you've actually, through the experience of seeing the shows, kind of been rejuvenated as a fan.
For sure. And that goes without question. Like, the other day I was watching something and I sent a message to Sanjay. I was like, yo, this dude Bandino is amazing. And he's like, what are you watching? I was like, I caught myself like looking at YouTube videos of this guy who I found compelling. And even just talking about like different people that we see. Like, there's dudes at WrestlePro. Is it Dan Maff? Is that
Dan Maff? Yeah. The Boricua Beast, Dan Maff.
He's amazing.
Amazing.
And I got to go to a WrestlePro show and talk to Pat Buck, and I'm going to California on Friday to do Twitch and One Night Only with Big Time Wrestling. And not only do I get to go and see these things, but I talk to the promoters daily. And I think that a lot of them are kind of taken aback with like how quickly I get things done for them. If they need like images of talent or they need anything, like I'm always quick to email back or talk to them back, and it's always like, oh, what a great working relationship we're all developing here. And I think like it's a lot of fun to be able to talk to all these people and know who they are, and be able to work with all these different promoters and companies and new talent. There's a dude named Cam Carter who's working in the Carolinas, who I think is really good. So it's just, it's really cool to be able to talk to these guys. And then to have someone like, I remember the first time I called Idris Abraham Like Scott Demore called me a few hours later. And he's like, dude, he freaked out that you called him. And I forget sometimes. So like I have been doing this for a long time. And I'm like, I need this, and this, and give it to me. You know what I mean? It's just like I'm always in work mode, not in like the, I've spent a long time in this business mode.
Right. You're more, what am I doing today? What are we doing? What do we have to do to get to this place tomorrow? As opposed to, hey, let's not forget my history.
Right. Like it never even comes into my brain space. So like when you say like wrangling talent, Matt Fortune's calling me on the line, send a voicemail.
Good.
When you say wrangling talent, like I have no problem like being a TV and being like, okay, I need to go grab so-and-so and we got to go shoot this stuff like right now because I've only got you guys for 2 days and then I'm not going to see you for 3 weeks.
Right. I mean, it's also cool on a couple of levels. You bring up Pat Buck, and I love watching the WrestlePro Impact Wrestling partnership just because I've been friends with Pat Buck as well for so long. So watching, Kevin Mathews and Fallah Bah and all these guys.
Fallah is a star, man.
Isn't he incredible?
He's a star. I love him.
Yeah.
I love him.
Watching all these guys get the opportunity, but then also seeing Impact be able to develop into a promotion that can use talent from around the world, right? Because of the new business model. So Pentagon can be a big star in Impact, and Sami Callihan can be a big star in Impact without having to convince anybody to sign to deals that are unfair to people or whatever. You just end up in a promotion. And what I think is going to be, eventually we're going to get there, the future of wrestling outside of the WWE, which is watching all this incredible talent that's spread out across the independents all kind of come together, and
it's such
I
a catch-22. That's where like that part right there, because it's like, okay, we're putting tickets on sale for a show. Okay, I wish that you could only see Pentagon or Phoenix or Sammy at Impact.
Sure.
That would make it a little bit easier, and that's why WWE gets to do what they do because they have that luxury. But it's so hard to. Okay, well, they were just working for MLW last week, so they were just in New York, and that's where it gets a little tricky.
So does that become about matchmaking? Like, okay, well, is there a match that we can offer that maybe you wouldn't see in an MLW or, wherever they're going to be?
I think you have to do that, right? Like, You have to get outside the box. Like, we're going to be at Culture Clash in April over the big WrestleMania weekend, obviously. Will be Thursday at Culture Clash with House of Glory, and it's just putting together that card and those matches that people are going to go, oh, like I have to see that. We got very fortunate last year with Impact versus Lucha Underground because people thought that was really cool, and it delivered in such a big way. I think that was one of the best shows of the year, and to me, that's where I point to the birth, so to speak, of what Santana and Ortiz have been able to do, in my opinion, is have the best tag team of the year and what they've accomplished and where they've gone. It's incredible to watch those kids.
Yeah. Now, as a guy who is so keen on digital content, you'd be a good person to ask this. TV ratings are, I feel like, something that's talked about amongst fans, and we'll call them internet analysts, way more than actual people in wrestling these days. And, the conversation came up with the Impact ratings going down after you change time slots. I feel like every Tuesday people are talking about, whether Raw ratings are up or down or whatever and what this means for business. But you see in both companies, in Impact and in WWE and in every wrestling company really, where there's any kind of criticism for TV ratings, you see all these other marks of a healthy company in various different avenues, whether it's internet, whether it's ticket sales, whether it's whatever. As a guy who's got his hands on Impact as much as you do, what do TV ratings mean in 2018? How much do they mean? How important are they?
Okay, so I have to say this with a caveat. Mm-hmm. I am the first person that knows the rating for our overnight, and I send it to everybody on Friday at exactly 4:45 when it comes out on Showbuzz Daily, and I am refreshing until they put the top 150 out. And the Thanksgiving numbers were delayed until today, and I was on there at 8:30 waiting for the numbers, and we did a 124 on Thanksgiving, which is up from the previous week.
That's great.
But with that said, but next week we'll do a 102. Like, it's so you can't predict that number. And for us, it's like, because it's that number, right? Like, that's like if 2 people don't watch the show that week, it's going to affect it, enormously. So with that caveat being said, it's not that important, right? Because the +3, the +5, the +7, the president of Pop TV, Brad Schwartz, said that he wish that he can get a +30, which they don't obviously do. But if you can look at the +7 numbers and the weekend numbers, especially for a show that's on Thursday, that speaks more to who's watching the show, obviously, than your overnights. But I think we're just stuck in that weird, like, Monday Night Wars world where the overnight was such a big deal, but it's not really. And then the most important number is the key demo. I know what our key demo was for Thanksgiving, and I'm not going to say it because it was low. But, that number was disappointing and lower than normally where we are. We're normally right around like 0.8 to 0.7, and that's okay. You don't want to get over 1 point, whatever. But that's the most important number, that key demo. And so the overnight's not a huge deal, but we all look for it. We all wait for it. We all discuss it. We all debate it. When we got up over 500,000 earlier this year, the debate was raging on as to how we did it. And again, being so close to these things now, I know that right now, the numbers aren't going to be great, but March and April and May, the numbers are going to be super inflated because it's WrestleMania season, and the numbers will be inflated across the board for all wrestling, and not only TV ratings, but for digital numbers. Like April and May are going to amaze people. Like if you came on board in April and May, you're going to go, oh my God, look at how great this is. What an uptick. And then the summer comes around and you're like, oh, wait, what's happening? What's going on? You have to look at it like it's a roller coaster. Those months are going to be up, and then the summer months are going to go down.
I hope you understand these are life lessons that we're getting coming from young Josh Mathews right now, and we've got more life lessons to come. But the most important lesson that I could teach you here on Notsam Wrestling is how to solve the complication of buying tickets online. There's hundreds of sites out there. Some are reliable, some are not reliable. You don't know who to trust. Let me tell you, SeatGeek is the way to go. Not only does SeatGeek guarantee that their tickets are authentic, but they guarantee that you're going to get the best deals. So, you see, SeatGeek is an app, right? I have it on my phone. What you do is you download the app. I've told you about it before. You put it on your phone. You can go through it. You can search by location. You can search by event. They got every sporting game. They have every Broadway play. They have concerts. They have comedy shows. They have wrestling. They have whatever you need. You want to find tickets to Royal Rumble this year? You're going to be in Phoenix? SeatGeek is going to hook you up. They do it by, you see the seating chart, so you can see exactly where your seats are, but every seat that they have is also rated. It's on a scale. It's either green or it's yellow or it's red. It will tell you what the value that you're getting of that seat is. You can get the best value, the best deal on a ticket. You can get the best seat in the house. You can get both. SeatGeek is the place that has it all. And best of all, my listeners, you guys are getting $10 off your first SeatGeek purchase. That's right. All you need to do is download the SeatGeek app and enter promo code SAM today, S-A-M, promo code SAM, and you're going to get $10 off your first SeatGeek purchase. You can't go wrong with SeatGeek. Life's an event. We have the tickets. Back to Josh Mathews. Now, how much of an indicator is it for business in general? Like, do you sit there and go, okay, well, this time last year, we were at this number, which means we should be at that number. Is it as much of an indicator? Because I think, like you said, the Monday Night Wars, that's when TV ratings didn't even matter before the Monday Night Wars. Nobody really talked about them. But it was the Monday Night Wars when it was like, since these two shows are on at the same time, that was your one numerical statistic that could say, well, this show did better than that show on this night. But in 2018, when stuff is not running head to head, and there's also so many other ways to watch a show, how much of an indicator of how the business is doing are TV ratings?
I don't think that they are at all, because you have to then look at, if you're going to look at TV ratings, then you still have to look at, okay, well, what about YouTube? And we post our clips very close to when they air on the show. Mm-hmm. Whether you agree with that philosophy or not, that's just the method that has been taking place over the last number of months. So, if you're watching it on YouTube, or you're going to get to see it, shortly thereafter it airs and then the next day with the clips, and then you can watch it on all the different platforms, from Pluto TV to Hulu to we're not on Netflix. But there's just so many different ways to see Impact, Global Wrestling Network, that it's so hard to say, I only watch it on TV or only watch it here. It's impossible to make that TV number mean as much as it used to, because there are, to your point, so many ways to watch this show. That it's not even a fair balance, really.
When you watch guys, because you've been in Impact for a long time now, when you were there when there are so many guys now, this new crop or the current crop of WWE guys, there's more guys than ever, especially in that top tier, that spent a good amount of time in Impact and what was TNA at the time. When you see guys prosper that you watched over in TNA or Impact, whatever you want to say, do you get frustrated at the fact that they weren't capitalized on as well as they could have been when you saw them, or do you just get kind of happy for their success?
I think it's being happy for their success. I mean, how can you not be happy for someone like AJ Styles?
Yeah.
And I see AJ from time to time at the airport, and we always, spend a few minutes talking to each other. EY is another great dude who, when I lived in Nashville, was just super cool and very friendly and invited me to Preds games. I mean, these were guys that have been around for a long time. Samoa Joe, who were always nice to me, and then they go off and they're there now and they're having the success that they're having. But it's like, even when you look, I mean, someone on a smaller scale who I don't think works there anymore, Mahabali Shira, when the decision was made for him not to get re-signed to Impact, I was like, okay, he's going to go to NXT. And he may become a big success there, but he's going, you know what I mean? Like, we can't keep him, but there's a chance that he goes out and becomes a star at WWE. That didn't work out for Shearer the way he might have wanted it to, but there are those guys that, like, while you would want to keep them in a perfect world with a bankroll of hundreds of millions of dollars, you would want to keep everybody, but it's not a perfect world, and people go. I won't get into details as to why my wife left Impact, but she wanted to stay. She would have stayed. She liked it there, but the opportunity to go to Ring of Honor and do more was there for her, and she went with that. And now she loves Ring of Honor, and that's her home. But there was nothing about Impact that she didn't like, that she was saying, I want to go. I don't want to be here anymore.
How quick did you know that the broken Matt Hardy thing was going to be a success? Because I would say, certainly of that era of Impact, if not, the last decade, that was the broken Matt Hardy was one of, if not the breakout moments for the company. How quickly did you know this isn't just some weird thing? We are really onto something that has the potential to catch fire.
When Matt Hardy called me on Thanksgiving and told me about this. Uh-huh. So it hadn't happened yet. It was going to happen. What year was that, Ash? Do you remember? When the Broken Brilliant stuff? 16, right? I think he called me. It was a Thanksgiving day, and he said, I just got done having Thanksgiving with Jeff. Listen to this idea. And he tells me literally, Sam, he tells me everything, beginning to end. We're going to have a match in the woods. We're going to put a ring in the woods. We're going to do this. We're going to do. And I said, Matt, you're nuts, but this sounds amazing. Uh-huh. And if you guys can pull this off, and he told me, he goes, I'm going to have amnesia, and I'm going to do this with my hair, and think about the character from Johnny Depp in the haircut movie.
Edward Scissorhands.
No.
Oh, the Sweeney Todd.
Yeah. Sweeney Todd. Yeah. And he's telling me all about this. And I hung up after like an hour on the phone with him, and I started telling Ashley, like, this is what he wants to do. This is his plan. And he's broken. And like, I thought about it all night, and it was brilliant. And then he executed it. And it was amazing. And the broken universe is something that was so unique onto Impact, and so cool that, amazing. Just I can't say enough good things about that. And it was all Matt's brainchild.
So great when you hear stuff like that. Okay, so we love Fallah Bahh, we love LAX, we love Phoenix and Pentagon. Who are the guys that are in Impact now that you want to see the company turn into next level stars? Like who are the guys that you really are just, there's something about them that in your gut you're like, that's one of my guys. I love that dude.
So there's these 3 kids. They're called the Rascals.
Mm-hmm.
Wentz and Zach Wentz, Desmond Xavier, and Trey Miguel. Have you watched any of their stuff yet?
Yeah, sure.
So they do like the spoof on the 70s show,
Right?
Where the kids are sitting around and the camera's kind of in the middle, spinning around as they're getting high.
Right.
And I watched that vignette probably 20 times, just on my couch at night and pause the TV and show my wife, and she was like, "What's this?" And it's I think that we have to explore things like that and go down that road to differentiate ourselves from anybody else. And it's like 3 dudes sitting around. I don't smoke weed. I never got into it, but kids do. And I thought that, I mean, it's going to be legal everywhere anyway soon, right? But I thought that, and those guys can go in the ring, and they're so receptive, and they're so cool, and they're so, like, I sent them a graphic the other day, and they all, like, freaked out with the emojis of, like, fire and how cool is this, and that, to me, makes me happy, to see guys get excited about stuff, and working on T-shirts for them. And I think that those 3, if I were buying stock in people, it would be Dez and Trey and Wentz for sure.
I love that. From a commentator's perspective, you've worked with, I mean, so many different people over the last 15 years or however long it's been. What is it like to work with Don Callis?
You know, it's funny because Don is in the position that he's in, right? He's a EVP in the company. So if I were to give my honest opinion is that I think Don and I are very good together, and that's not with Don being in the position that he's in. That's my legitimate opinion. If Don were just my color commentator partner, I would say the same exact thing. I told him this in Vegas when we were just there, took our headsets off, and I said that was the best show we've ever called. And people don't understand with Impact is that it's a live event first and TV tapings are second. So when they build that show that night, it's okay, what's the best live event we can put together? Now we're filming 4 episodes. So on one night I may call 4 different episodes and 4 different segments, like 1847, and then we're going to jump to 1846. Then we're going to go back to 47. Now we're going to do 50. Now we're going to do a match for 49. So I have to keep up with what show we're on, what match we're in, what segment we're in, to know what I can talk about, what we haven't seen yet.
Wow.
And Don does a great job of knowing where we are, what we're doing, what segment we're in, what show we're in. So I'm bouncing around between 18 different formats and all sorts of different things. So it's stressful, but it's fun. And I think Don and I, we have similar personalities, and Don is super elitist. I think that many people may say I'm an elitist. And we both germaphobes, and if the guys come close to our table, we both kind of like where's the Purell? So we're very similar in those respects, and I think that now we've only gotten better because he knows when I'm going to talk. I know when he's going to talk. That's kind of like 40% of having a color commentator that you work well with is knowing when they're going to get in and knowing when they're going to get out. I know what moves he wants to call, what names of moves he wants to call. I know when he wants to talk, and that's sort of like, once you figure that part out, the rest is sort of easy.
It also seems like with somebody like him who is so personality heavy that it would make your job of defining yourself as the play-by-play man way easier.
And I do. I get to just call action. I get to, do what I have been trained to do for so many years, and just do my job. And at Impact, it's so much more important because we've got to get these kids over. People don't know who they are. They're not John Cena or Roman Reigns or Seth Rollins. We've got to get these guys over, and that's our job. So it's a little bit harder than it was up there because those guys were over. You call an RKO and everyone cheers for Randy Orton. So it's different in that respect. If we've got to explain who these characters are and get them over to an audience.
It blows my mind that you guys are doing live commentary, but you're shooting it almost like a film in the sense that the story's all out of order. So you kind of have to figure out where the story is and be able to piece it together. Why do you bother doing the commentary live? Like if you're not gonna do the matches in order, why wouldn't you save yourself the headache and just you and Don get together and do the commentary on tape?
There's a few reasons. One is that neither Don or I live in Nashville, and because I'm not there anymore, I think that they've kind of said, hey, let's do it at TV and help these guys out so they don't have to be away from their families. Those are the kind of decisions that are made in this company, which is really cool.
Yeah.
One, they didn't hold a grudge or resentment towards me not being in Nashville anymore. I'm 5 hours down the road, so if I need to go there, I can, but they know that's not a super easy trip to make. So we do everything there, and it helps both Don and I out. So that's why I don't mind when the show starts with the main event from 1850, and then I've got to call 4 other shows. You know what I mean? Like I get what they're doing to help us. So I do my best to make sure I know where we are at any given point in the show.
Do you end up getting hungry for those weekends though? Like, because you guys tape, you'll do, when I saw you're doing Bound for Glory, and then I think 2 nights of TV tapings, but you're when you are taping shows, it becomes so intensive in the sense that, like you said earlier, you've got 2 or 3 days with all the talent, and you just have to get everything done, and there's no choice in the matter. Everybody's jumping in head first. You're all underwater for the next 3 days, and when you come out of it, you're going to have 6 to 8 weeks worth of TV. Do you end up going like, I'm sure at the end of those weekends you're exhausted, but how long is it before you're going, man, I'm kind of ready to tape another set of shows?
Well, for me, it's different because we do the monthly Twitch and the one night only. So I'm home, and then I just got home from Vegas, and then I leave again Friday morning. So it's like, we're still out there. It's just we're not doing TV as much. Then when I get home from California, then it's homecoming, and then we're in Mexico a couple of days after that. So it's probably 2 weekends a month. So it's a good balance. You're okay. By the time you're, to your point though, you are ready to get back out when you're home, because that's just like the mentality of all of us is you get cabin fever after too long.
What do you?
As my wife says, "Oh yeah, I get cabin fever."
Well, yeah, that's the other thing. It's like you both have been in the wrestling business for so long. That's one of those things where when you spend too much time together, it's almost like I'm not used to being around another person in the same closed space for this many days in a row.
I'm a good the first night guy. Like I love the first night and getting to whatever town we're in, and I think I get like overwhelmed with excitement and energy, and end up staying up too late and hanging out with everybody too long. And then I want to go home immediately because I never did that the first night. I just don't know a good balance. It was first and last night. In the middle, I'm kind of like, oh man,
right,
get out of here.
Right. Last night you're celebrating because there's no tomorrow. We're all good.
Exactly.
That
and
makes
then
sense.
we were on red eyes coming home from Vegas, so that was just, we were at the airport like children, just waiting to get on planes to go home. So.
Right. That makes sense. What are your goals / hopes for Impact in 2019? What do you want to see happen, and realistically, how plausible is it?
Well, I think when you look at 18 and you look at our pay-per-views, like between Redemption, Slammiversary, and BFG, like I think we had 3 of the best pay-per-views of any wrestling company of the year, especially Slammiversary. It was critically acclaimed. So I think that having great pay-per-views is a good start. And even like to even talk about a traditional pay-per-view in 2019, I don't think I would have thought that we would be having this conversation a couple years ago, but through things like Fight TV and different streaming services, pay-per-views can still be a thing, and big shows can be a thing. And I just think that, our calendar is booked now until April, so everyone knows where we're going to be through April. I think that the stigma or the worry that Impact's going to go out of business, I think can be put to rest for the next 5 to 7 years. And I don't know if anyone has been able to say that about this company in a long time, but I think that, the direction of 18 was to let's figure this thing out, and 19 is okay, figure it out, and let's really get some power behind this. And I think that's where we are going into 19. So, there's things that are happening that are exciting, and, you just have to see if those things come to fruition. And then it's, doing the work once we get there.
How many were there any times, and how many times were there when you realistically thought, I really think this company is going to go out of business. I think I'm not going to have a gig anymore. There's no way, because, when as an outsider, you read along with everything that's going on. And since you got there, however many years ago, there's been, many, many times when everybody's like, I don't know, it's not looking good. It's looking bad. This is getting sold. You've gone through a ton of different owners and different people running the company. How many times, and what was the closest time you felt to, we're in danger here, this is it?
Well, I think I'm more pessimistic than optimistic about things a lot of times. So there was a few times where I thought, okay, there's just no way. It's just, it can't continue. This is when we were, everyone was in Nashville and we were at Cummins Station, and we switched offises. We went from the big office down to the basement. We then went to the warehouse to work for a little while. Just a lot of times, but I can't say this as an employee of the company. I've never been paid late, and I've never not been paid on time, and I've never not been paid my full salary. So it's so hard for me to say, I think, and I thought, and I was worried about this. And then to so it's kind of like, I don't want to be disrespectful to those people who, made sure that on the 1st and 15th that my money was in my bank account. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, did I ever think it was going to end? Yeah, a few times. But then I think back to those years in WWE where, we did campaigns like Tighten the Belt, and expense reports were looked at, and you couldn't spend a lot of money on the road, and going through probably wasn't close to shutting the company down. But, I think that Impact or TNA, as it were, then probably came closer than I knew a couple of times. But there was always TV, and there was always, a light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. And
you're like you said, your check always cashed. So at the end of the day, that's your only indication, right?
And right. And like, it wasn't like anybody called me and said, hey, this is going to happen. We're all worried. Like, it was always that speculation, right? That online speculation that this was going to happen, or Spike dropped them and now Impact's dead, whatever the case may be. It always, I don't want to say the little engine that could, because we passed that, but always found a way to survive.
Now that you've got more of an eye on the talent that's out there, is there any talent that you look at and is kind of like, I would love for that person to be an Impact?
There's a few people on these Twitch shows or One Night Only shows that I thought, man, these guys deserve a contract. There was a show in Detroit. Scott Demore and I called it, and the first, I can't remember any of the guys that were in it at this point, but the first match, I thought every one of them could have been on our roster tomorrow. Like, they were that good. Cam Carter, who I mentioned earlier, in the Carolinas. Oh, good girl, Sam. We got a puppy, and every time she goes to the bathroom where she's supposed to go, we have to praise her. So I have to stop what I'm doing and tell her how great she did.
Good girl. Good girl.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
So people like that. I'm trying to think if there's any female wrestlers out there that we've talked about lately that should get looks. My wife's looking at me like, oh, who's he going to say? Who's he been keeping an eye on?
Yeah, this could get you in trouble.
Out there? Yeah, for sure. No, honestly, I think that Rachel Bostic, speaking of girls, she is someone who I think, and she got an opportunity at Impact when we were in Las Vegas, and I think that she hit the ball out of the park. She's been doing this for a while now. She's from Pittsburgh. I think that she's someone to keep an eye on.
Well, Josh Mathews, I love seeing you grow and develop and evolve as a performer and as a worker and as a human being, and it seems like you're in a pretty wonderful space in your life right now, so congratulations on everything, man.
Yeah, thanks, buddy. When will I see you again? Are you coming to beautiful Ohio anytime soon?
I don't know, but I feel like since I didn't see you the entire time you were in Nashville, I should try to at least come and visit you in Ohio.
Well, I mean, we're here now. Like our house is done. We move in this week, and then, but I'll be in Nashville in January. So I don't, maybe a trip to Nashville.
Yeah, it wouldn't be. It wouldn't be a bad idea. I meant to get out there like so many times, and it was just like, yeah, next time. You know how it is. Next time. But I enjoyed seeing you when you were in New York, and I was telling Jess that was the first time we had actually physically seen each other in a couple of years, I think, and.
I think since the last time I was in New York, right?
Probably. And I was like, I mean, it was the funniest thing because it was like that old cliche. Like, I felt like it had been 2 weeks. Like, I was like, this is exactly how it's always been. So,
we just pick up where you left off, right?
Exactly. Thanks a lot, man. And thanks for doing the show.
Of course. My pleasure. Let's not have so long in between when we do this.
Absolutely.
Hey, Notsam Wrestling Podcast listeners, this is Wade Keller, editor of PWTorch.com. I've been covering professional wrestling as my job for over 30 years since I was a teenager. You might have heard me on the Steve Austin Podcast, the Jim Ross Report, and right here on the Notsam Wrestling Podcast. And you can hear me break down professional wrestling 4 times per week. Just search Wade Keller wherever you listen to podcasts. We've got our post-Raw show available a couple hours after Raw with on-site correspondents who describe what happened off-camera, what didn't air on the show that night, plus live callers just like you responding to the show, plus our mailbag segment, and a rotation of co-hosts. Same thing after SmackDown on Tuesday nights. And our flagship drops every Thursday, and our interview every Friday, and includes special guest co-hosts, including sometimes Sam Roberts. I also talk with ex-WWE creative team members who share fascinating behind-the-scenes stories about Vince McMahon, top stars, and storylines that went a different direction than were planned. So join me every week as we cover the world of professional wrestling. Just search Wade Keller on your podcast app of choice and subscribe to both the red logo and the blue logo. That'll cover you for all 4 weekly shows. Or check out our links on our news and results site, pwtorch.com.
Here is Sam Roberts.
A lot of lessons there from young Josh Mathews. A lot of lessons. You know I'm all about paying attention to the lessons that we learn on these shows. And Josh Mathews, at this point in his life, it's all about realizing that sometimes the unexpected happens. It's all about appreciation for where you're at in life. It's all about realizing that you're just going to keep growing and learning. It's about not getting caught up in the moment that you're in. You know, a lot of us find ourselves caught up in whatever emotions go along with whatever moment we happen to be in based on our immediate circumstances, not realizing life is long. Lots of things happen. You know, it is something that at one point made Josh Mathews a bitter man, led him to the love of his life and the family and the career that he now has. So you just never act like it's time to put your cards in. You've always got a hand. You're always playing your hand. Until the last day on this planet, you are playing your hand. So never stop playing it. Never stop playing it. Great talking to Josh again. And I told you guys at the top of the show, it's great to have friends. This is all about friends this week. We're approaching the holidays, and this week's wrestling podcast is all about friends. Let's go to another friend. Right now, this week, my friend, Katie Linendoll, is back. She's here in the not stam. I'll tell you what, I'm certainly not stammering. I'm not stammering. I am stammering, but I'm not going to be stammering anymore because I've got to impress my friend here in the Notsam studio to do State of Wrestling alongside yours truly, the last professional broadcaster. Katie Linendoll is here. Let's get into it.
It's now time for this week's State of Wrestling.
How are you doing, world, ladies and gentlemen? Please welcome back to the State of Wrestling. I was going to say for the first time in a long time, but for the first time in like a couple weeks because you were on a couple weeks ago. But for the very first time, believe it or not, live in the Notsam studio, Miss Katie Linendoll. Welcome.
Studios are amazing.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. It's very good.
Amazing.
It's very good to have you here to help me. I see that you've picked your own cast. You know, on the table are various WWE, horror movie, Simpsons, action figures.
But mostly WWE.
I mean, the majority is WWE. That, by the way, is...
You know who I didn't see?
Huh.
Okay, first off, I've never seen more wrestling figures in my life.
Right.
I'm really
Tell
really
that to
impressed.
stupid Zack Ryder, and I didn't have to go on eBay to get him.
I'm really impressed.
Good. Woo,
You know
woo,
who I
woo. You
didn't
know it.
see?
Who?
I think I might have one on you.
Who?
But it's not technically, I don't know if it's like a Mattel.
If it's Ludwig Borg, I'm going to be pissed.
No, keep going. Come
I
on.
don't know-
You
I don't
my
know.
character palette.
Yeah, I mean, I know, but I'm sure I have him.
Shark Boy.
No.
I know it doesn't count because you're going to say it's not WWE, but technically, you have a lot of weird stuff here. You don't have Shark Boy, do you?
I don't know for sure, because there's a lot of...
I got one on you.
You might. I might have to get that from you, actually, because there's a lot of...
That will be my housewarming gift
yeah, I
to
might.
you.
I might need that from you, because
Class
there's...
up the joint.
I found, because I'm going through bins of all kinds of old figures, I found a TNA Conan figure.
Okay.
Which, who has a Conan figure from TNA?
It's strong.
But I found one. And I've got a Sabu and Raven from TNA.
Do you have like an ODB from TNA?
I don't think they made an ODB.
Well,
But they did make a
should've.
Shark Boy.
We get that 3D
You have,
printed.
well, yeah, if you could 3D print me an ODB and give me your Shark Boy, I think we'll be all set.
Deal.
But welcome, Katie Linendoll. You know by now, I mean, you were one of the OGs of the state of wrestling. We now break down the top 5 stories, according to me,
Yes.
the last professional broadcaster, Sam Roberts, in the
true.
world of wrestling.
It's true.
And I want to dive deep, I think, really into number 1. So we're going to probably not spend a ton of time on the top 5, but they all bear mentioning,
Of course.
if that makes sense. So my 5th story of the top 5 is a bit of a sleeper in the sense that it went down on Sunday. We did a pre-show for it on the Patreon.
Like a chloroform sleeper?
People, not a WrestleMania 9 sleeper.
You know where I was going.
Yeah, well, I would hope it's WrestleMania 9. Otherwise, we're going off brand. But not. No, it's Starrcade. Starrcade 2018, the first televised Starrcade in, I think they said either 17 or 18 years, went down on the WWE Network on Sunday. It came without boxes. It came without bags. It came without ribbons. However the rest of the Grinch goes. What I'm saying is people enjoyed it. I enjoyed watching it. But it certainly, for people that grew up with Starrcade as one of the most important shows of the year, because a lot of people did. A lot of people that were raised with WCW, people that were raised with the NWA, Starrcade was on a WrestleMania type of level.
Really? You would put it there?
100%.
Okay.
For
okay.
them. Like
Okay.
I think you and I were both kind of raised the same way in the sense
I
that
see.
we were...
For them is a big add-on.
Well, yeah, because we were WWE kids.
Correct.
So, like, King of the Ring was still the end-all, be-all in 93 for us.
Truth.
But if you weren't a WWE kid and you were raised NWA, you were raised Crockett, you were raised WCW, you were raised Turner, Starrcade was their big event. So I think it's worth noting that, the big return happens and it's a televised house show, and it's really just part of a televised house show. I think that while some people were going, this is not Starrcade, this isn't fair to Starrcade, blah, 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 I thought it was more cool to see what could be the future of the WWE Network in the sense that we got to see a live event on the WWE Network. You know what I mean? Like, I wasn't so much looking at it as this is Starrcade, because it's not Starrcade. I mean, there was Starrcade when WCW was around, and then it went away. They happened to call this show Starrcade. That's really all that it has
Do you
in
think
common.
they shouldn't have called it Starrcade?
I'm biased probably in the same way that you are, in the sense that I don't have this attachment to Starrcade. Like, I didn't sit there excited every December because Starrcade was right around the corner. I knew it was a big WCW pay-per-view, but like I said, I was a WWF kid. I was a WWE kid. So I was more excited about literally all WWE pay-per-views than Starrcade. So I think I'm a little biased in the sense that I don't, the tradition of Starrcade doesn't really mean much to me. I think it's cool that they're at least acknowledging the brand and going like, hey, we're going to a city that maybe WCW was big in. I think Cincinnati was a good market for them. That's where they were this year. Last year, of course, North Carolina, that was a bigger deal, in Greensboro, because that's where a lot of Starrcades were. So, I mean, I don't mind just acknowledging the fact that every holiday season, whether it's the weekend after Thanksgiving or just between Thanksgiving and Christmas, there is an acknowledgement to Starrcade. I think more on those levels, like it's just a tip of the hat to Starrcade, than I do, oh, that's disrespectful. Starrcade means more than that. Because, you did have Samoa Joe versus AJ Styles in a steel cage, right? You did have Ric Flair out there. Like, it wasn't just a run-of-the-mill random show so much. And I also think it added... So, I think if you want to test the idea of putting house shows on the network, which I think WWE is probably pretty interested in doing, there needs to be a reason, right? You can't just say, hey, we want to see if this works, so we're putting on Saturday's house show on the WWE network. People go, what are you talking about? Like, there's no... But if you call the house show Starrcade, now there's a reason to put it on the network.
Do you think you have to pass back some of that, what was the old school version of it, or do you think you take on a whole new production quality? Or can you not do that?
What do you mean?
Do you change it up entirely and just call it Starrcade?
Well, no, I think there was enough. Like, they talked about the fact that Starrcade was a tradition. Ric Flair was on the show. Beyond that, I don't know how much you want to do, right? I don't know how much is even good for the business. I don't know how much, like to spend so much time acknowledging tradition. It's like WrestleMania. We're going on WrestleMania 35. There's always going to be a big deal made about the fact that this is the 35th WrestleMania, but the headline of WrestleMania should always be...
It snowed.
I hope so.
Me too.
Oh my God, do I hope so. But and it really should be that it snowed. But it should be whatever was happening in the main event as it pertains to the current active today's product.
Do you bring back Al Snow? Okay, I'm done.
Because in case
It's
it
going
snows.
there.
Right, no,
Okay,
I get
okay,
it. I get it. So I thought it was, I liked that Starrcade was on.
I like the acknowledgement.
Right, and I liked that it gave a reason for live events to be televised, because I hope that there's more televised live events, because as I talked about with the international pay-per-views, I just think it's cool that with the WWE Network, you can run shows. At times there wouldn't be a show. Like, maybe some random Sunday, you could have a 1-hour special, right? Maybe if we're going to Australia, we can do a show at 4 o'clock in the morning. Why not? It's our network. And I think that I love the idea of, like, waking up at Saturday and being like, oh, yeah, there's a live pay-per-view on right now. And Triple H is wrestling The Undertaker. I just woke up. Let's watch. You know why? WWE's got their own network.
Because
why
we
not?
can.
Because we can.
Is it nerdy of me to still think about the business side of the network?
No, of course not. I think that's interesting.
I think it's fascinating to, like, even when you're saying televising a live house show, the production that goes into that, and also it's not cheap to do a live production in any capacity, no matter how scaled down it is. But also then it brings me to the larger question at hand is how is the network doing? Did it make sense to put every single pay-per-view and so many pay-per-views per month on? I don't know. Do you have the same questions?
I do. I think the network's doing really well. I think by all accounts, everybody's really happy with the network. They've got over 1 million subscribers. And
it's just such a bold move to think back that not too long ago, we were literally paying like $80 for a pay-per-view.
Yeah. No,
is that lost on you yet? Because I still revisit it. I'm like, whoa. It
is a bold move, but I also think that WWE wanted to tell the world that the network is not in addition to. Like, this is the new way to watch our product. Not, hey, and if you're a big wrestling fan, you can get all the home video libraries on this network for $10. It's, we're putting out this network, and this is how you watch WWE. I think WWE's vision for this network is more like Netflix, in the sense that Netflix changed the way people watch television, right? All together. You don't just, you have to have Netflix, right? And I think if you're a wrestling fan, you have to have the WWE network. And I don't know if that have to have thing is there if all those pay-per-views aren't there. And WWE is smart enough to go, look, we have to see where this business is going. WWE's always been really good about seeing the future. I know I just saw you in Los Angeles hanging out in the VR booth. Like, what company is putting that kind of effort and money into producing VR content? The whole pay-per-views in virtual reality.
And not even in my words alone, they sit back and wait for just the right time where it is future enough, but it's also like, let's see if this is going to work before we hop into it.
Right.
I don't know if we could say that for the network, though, actually.
How do you mean?
Because I think they were pretty out the gate quick to do something of this nature. So maybe I'm negating myself.
You mean like they were way ahead of the curve,
Like, when it
almost to
comes
the point where it's a
VR,
risk.
Yeah, VR we know is like companies are doing it.
Yeah,
brands
right,
are
right,
doing
right.
it. Like it's, but it's still.
Yeah, whereas Dana White was literally saying, "This is a terrible thing WWE is doing. It's when they announced the network, he said it's degrading the value of the product." That's what Dana White said. I'm not asking you to agree.
It was ahead of its time.
Yeah, but I think it was
In a
the
way.
right move. You know, I think that 100% it was the right move. That's the way people are consuming content, and you know, and I think the WWE's been smart enough. I mean, the company's only done better since the networks come out. And they've made their money back. I mean, look at the money they're making in their TV deals now. Right? Like, you have to look at the business as a whole, not just how many dollars did this pay-per-view bring in? How many dollars is this pay-per-view bringing in today? It's, what is the company doing? Okay, we're going to be way ahead of the curve with this network, and we're going to lose money over here.
Bigger picture.
But, exactly, the bigger picture is we're building this brand. They realize, that's why the TV isn't going to the network. They're still signing TV deals because in 2018, why would anybody watch television? Because it's live, right? That's the only reason to really watch television.
Yes.
You know? And wrestling fans are the only ones, no matter how much they complain about how much the show sucks, wrestling fans are going to tune in and watch the show, and they're going to have to watch it live, right? Like, you know, I'm sure that Hulu numbers do well, but not, you know, people are still tuning in on USA to watch Raw and SmackDown because you have to watch it live, because you got to live tweet it, and you got to know what everybody's talking about the next day. Otherwise, all these podcasts that jamokes like me are putting out, everybody's going to be behind. You got to watch live.
You got to watch live unless it's the 90s and it's preempted by the dog show.
That was a shame. And historically,
that was awful.
I mean, you talk about being on the wrong side of history, which Baron Corbin addressed on Raw. I would say the Westminster Kennel Club was on the wrong side of history.
Absolutely agree.
So, speaking of business and the way we look at things, I was talking to Wade Keller about Brock Lesnar and the potential fight with Daniel Cormier and where that might leave him for WrestleMania and all this stuff. And I didn't even consider, right? So, and this will be story number 4. I didn't even consider the fact that Brock Lesnar, because I said, okay, the rumors are that the Brock Cormier fight may go down sometime in the new year, but before April.
That's crazy, actually.
Those are where rumors are, right? So I was like, okay, that makes sense.
Did you read it online?
I read it on the internet.
Then it's real.
Okay, yeah, all right. So it's a fact, not a rumor. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, so I go, okay, well, that makes sense. You can have him maybe do a match at Royal Rumble, maybe, and then do UFC, and then come back for WrestleMania. And Wade Keller pointed out to me, what happens if he gets injured at UFC? And I was like, I don't know. Will he really get injured? Story number 4, Tom Lawler, who wrestles for MLW, I don't know if you know him or not, but he's awesome. He fought at the Golden Boy MMA show over the weekend that Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz fought at. He was fighting right under them, and I think he broke his hand. I think that was his injury. But he broke his hand, which is putting him out of action for a little while. And that's when it really clicked in. And technically the story number 4 is the Tom Lawler story. But in the context of, if Brock Lesnar fights before WrestleMania, and he carries the Universal Championship into WrestleMania, which he very well might. I mean, I guess Stephanie said we're getting the Braun Strowman Brock Lesnar match at Royal Rumble, right? Didn't she say we were doing Baron Corbin, Braun at the pay-per-view at TLC, and then Braun Brock theoretically at Royal Rumble? So either Braun wins the title and Brock goes on to UFC, or Braun loses, Brock carries the title into UFC. But is it worth putting because obviously you want the Universal Championship to walk into the octagon, right? It's a commercial for WWE, I think. Is it worth the commercial to risk not having a Universal Champion at WrestleMania? Do you follow me?
You really think the Universal Championship is going to go into the octagon?
If Brock is the champion, my own personal theory, I haven't talked to anybody about it. I believe that Brock will make WWE pay him more to hold the title.
Oh, that's $1 million right there.
Right, the same way he's got Jimmy John's on his trunks, he's going to make WWE pay for the advertisement of being around his waist. But I think WWE...
Are you just going to throw Heyman in there too?
Well, no, that's ridiculous.
It's a twofer. It's the holiday season.
No, I do think that the Universal
Coming
title.
off of Cyber Weekend sales.
I do think the Universal title will make an
You're
appearance.
serious right now.
If Brock is the champion.
You're acting like it's not even a long shot.
If Brock keeps the title, I think it's not a long shot. If Brock is the Universal champion when he fights Daniel Cormier, I would assume, not only would I think, I would assume that he'll walk into the octagon with the Universal Championship.
For $1 million.
Maybe.
What's your over-under on that?
I mean, I don't know if $1 million is the figure, but it could be. I think he'll get paid. But I think that
$500,000.
Exactly. Yeah, I think he'll bring it in. Now, my ultimate fantasy is that Brock beats Daniel Cormier, becomes the UFC heavyweight champion, and walks into WrestleMania
I see what you did there.
with the Universal title and the UFC heavyweight championship. I think that would look even cooler than walking into the octagon. I mean, as badass as Brock is, do you know how much more badass he would become if he walked into a WWE ring with the UFC heavyweight championship?
I think that just goes to show like the legitimacy of Rousey and the Four Horsewomen, new age, coming in. Like that just adds value.
Yeah, Shayna and Jessamine Duke and Marina Shafir. Yeah. But that's.
And then what if he's also the cruiserweight champion? Okay, all right.
He may have to cut. He may have to cut weight, but he could do it.
Okay.
He's Brock. But yeah, so I that's the one concern. Now
you can't tell me though that there's not a clause in terms of going back to your initial point.
Yeah.
About getting hurt potentially.
Right. What would the clause?
There's got to be a clause in the contract that doesn't allow him to fight at a certain time period. Before something like WrestleMania.
Look, there's never been a contract that would allow a person to wrestle in WWE and UFC at the same time. That's insane.
It's a different time, man.
Exactly. So you're right. But who knows what these clauses are? Like, it's an unheard of deal.
You think that got past WWE legal? No way.
Well, look.
No way.
Here's why. Because WWE is smart. WWE is an incredibly evolved company in the sense that, like, they're way more into, apparently, doing business outside of WWE than ever before. And they realize that win or lose, Brock Lesnar walking into the octagon with the Universal Championship is a great commercial for WrestleMania.
Absolutely.
Even if he loses in one round to Daniel Cormier, they go, okay, to keep Brock happy. Like if Brock goes, well, I'm not signing unless I can fight in UFC. And they're like, okay, well, we would really like to have Brock here. It's worth it. Well, how about this, Brock? You can fight in UFC, but you're bringing in the Universal title. Like these are the deals that are probably, one would assume, getting made. And, I still think it would be in the WWE's best interest. I think it would be in everyone's best interest to try to get the UFC fight between Brock and Cormier happening before WrestleMania, even though, especially after the Tom Lawler thing, it leaves us in a situation where it's a risk.
Wow.
I think so.
At the end of the day, everyone has a price, except me.
Even IRS for the tax man?
Yep.
They couldn't pay you to go to UFC?
Nope. I'm just saying a price in general.
Oh, I see. You're not a sellout is what you're saying.
Nope.
I see. Well, depending on the dollar figure. If you want Katie to do something, she won't do it. I'll do it.
No, Sam will definitely do it.
Right, for the money.
Me, I have integrity.
Yeah. Me, I have
Out the
pockets that
window.
need filling. Right? Money. Let me know what you want me to say, do, pay me.
Game on.
All good. All good.
Yep.
Let's move on to story number 3. Story number 3 is a story that was actually, now it's being bandied about on WWE commentary, and that is Lars Sullivan. My question is, Raw, SmackDown, who needs him more?
First off, I think he looks like...
Let's talk about the character.
Yeah.
Right?
Let's start there.
There you go. So,
Because actually, I wanted to ask you about this, and I was
Yeah.
going to text you to get... He kind of looks like somebody, but I can't put my pulse on it. He definitely looks like Baron Corbin's uncle, but somebody much, much grandiose in past.
like a wrestler?
Let's dig. Yeah.
I have no idea. I've never seen anybody that looks like Lars Sullivan, I don't
Really?
think. I'm sure somebody will come. George the
Someone
Animal
will-
Steel?
No. Someone,
Somebody will tweet it in.
Khali style. Someone big.
I thought you said Kalisto. I was like, it's not Kalisto.
No.
But, okay, so the conversation that's going on commentary is he's coming to the main roster. They're calling him the hottest free agent, blah, blah, blah.
Wait, he's coming to main roster already?
Yeah, the vignettes are running. He's coming. He's main roster bound.
Is that the vignettes that they were ripping on kind of a little bit?
No.
Or that was NXT stuff?
Yeah, I don't.
Okay,
I think that was something else.
Fill me in. Sorry.
Yeah, the vignettes are coming. Just the monster Lars Sullivan is coming.
Okay.
And he is being described as the hottest free agent that there is right now. Raw team is saying like, oh, I hope he ends up on Raw. SmackDown team is saying, I hope he ends up on SmackDown. Where would you...
I think this is a leap of a conversation, but okay.
For the quality of the programming.
Okay.
Where do you put Lars Sullivan?
205 Live.
Boy, would he make just Lord Destruction out of everybody on 205 Live.
No, for real. For real.
Yeah. Where does that...
I'm going to throw that one back to you.
Well, I was thinking about it a lot.
Really?
Of course I was. I think about it all a lot. And
you thought about this more than refinancing your mortgage. It's
you can refinance a mortgage? Huh.
Yep.
Well, I'll leave that one to the experts.
Yeah.
I got to keep thinking about Lars Sullivan.
Yeah.
So, Raw, obviously, you have to be careful with the monsters that you put on Raw because you've got Braun Strowman. Braun Strowman is the ultimate monster of all monsters in the company, right?
Great.
So you got to be careful that nobody goes, number one, nobody outshines Braun, and number two, nobody gets outshined by Braun, right? So if a monster shows up on Raw, how do you delicately make it so, number one, he doesn't make Braun look like a wimp, but they also don't have Braun make him look like a wimp.
Right.
Because if he shows up, all of a sudden Braun and him are arguing over who's the bigger badass. One of them is going to get buried by the whole thing because you can't come in, be this amazing badass, have Braun destroy you, and then still be an amazing badass because people will be like, yeah, but I like Braun. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So there's that.
Fair. Okay.
SmackDown, you don't really have any...
Is it filling a void there?
You don't really have any monsters on SmackDown. But you've got a different type of monster. You've got monsters that are a little bit more psychological in their pursuit. Samoa Joe, I think, is a monster in the sense that he doesn't have... His lack of humanity makes him a monster. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Right. Did you hear what he said about Jeff Hardy this week?
It's true.
Horrible things.
Yeah.
You know why? He didn't have feelings. You know why? Samoan monster. Right? You've got Randy Orton, a man who tore off poor Rey Mysterio's mask. What kind of man would do that?
Unacceptable.
No kind of man. You know what kind of being would do that? Monster. Those are the monsters of SmackDown. To me, I think if we learned anything this week, it's that Raw is in more need of fresh blood than SmackDown.
Really?
Yep. That there is more need of an injection of the unpredictable into Raw. And I think you could spend a lot of time building up Lars Sullivan, keeping him very far away from Braun Strowman for a year if you have to the point where eventually you could have this clash of the Titans. But before you do that, you spend a long time turning Lars Sullivan into a Titan. I would put him on Raw. And the reason is, I don't think SmackDown needs it. I don't think SmackDown is lacking almost anything at this point.
I mean, they got swept in Survivor Series.
Yeah, but it's not being addressed. If you watch the show, it's like nobody cares. I thought Shane McMahon cared, but he don't care. He's fine with it.
All right. Point made.
He's like, whatever. It's over. I got my trophy. That's what Shane's saying. So, I mean, when I watch the show, I'm not sitting there going
I don't think you can keep him far enough away from Braun as you think.
That could be an issue. Yeah. And, I mean, the Authors of Pain had a similar story to Lars Sullivan, and they had a tough time. They're having a tough time on Raw.
Who do you see him?
Their manager's peeing on things.
Oh, that's true.
We'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there.
We'll get
it's
there.
Interesting.
We got 2 stories left, so we'll get there.
Who do you think you do right out the gate?
Lars Sullivan with?
Yeah.
Honestly, I would have Lars Sullivan walk in and leave No Way Jose and all of his dancers in a flaming heap. Like, just really...
Oh, as like an aside, not as like a match.
No, I mean like first night out, maybe even first pay-per-view, whatever it is. Like just no way Jose would be the sacrificial lamb handed to Lars Sullivan. Not like a long-term, oh, finally we're getting to see this battle. Just we used to be able to have fun on Raw, but Lars Sullivan has come and killed everything.
Oh.
You know? And then, I mean, you know, I think a Seth Rollins, Lars Sullivan thing eventually could be interesting. I think... you know, there's a few guys on Raw. You know, obviously I would keep Lars Sullivan a heel. I think that's where he works best. And Braun Strowman as a kind of good guy. You don't need two good guy monsters.
P.S. It just hit me.
What did? Who did?
Who Lars Sullivan reminds me of.
Who?
Somebody else is going to have this thought. Maybe.
Who?
Dr. Isaac Yankem.
DDS?
Yep.
You know
He's
what?
a mix of him and Kane. I know it's the same person.
Lars Sullivan is a mix of Isaac Yankem and Kane?
Yeah.
Does that make him the fake Diesel?
What is it? What do you mean by that?
He played the fake Diesel as well.
Isaac Yankem.
And Kane.
Okay,
Mayor Jacobs.
I thought you were trying to combine two people and then move them in a cloning program.
It's all one person. It's all Mayor Jacobs.
Okay. Mayor Jacobs.
Mayor Glenn Jacobs.
It's awesome.
Knoxville.
Awesome.
Yeah, I guess that it's the jaw. It's the pronounced jaw, I think.
Perhaps.
Because I see it.
Okay.
I see it. And then, you know, they're big guys. You're right about that. I see the pronounced jaw. But so I personally would find a spot for Lars Sullivan on Raw. Now, we talked about SmackDown, and that moves me to story number 2. And story number 2 was SmackDown is just so fabulous right now.
Oh.
I thought it was just great on Tuesday. Now, there's one flaw on SmackDown, and that's as we were walking into Crown Jewel, it was so important to everybody that a SmackDown athlete won the World Cup of WWE. It was so important that Shane McMahon threatened to fire anybody that lost in the finals of that tournament, right? So that was important. Then the whole build-up to Survivor Series, brand loyalty, brand supremacy was so important. We're now 2 episodes removed from Survivor Series. And as I said earlier, not one mention of getting... Well, I mean, they've mentioned it, but not one mention of consequences for getting swept.
That's swept under the rug in itself.
Right. I mean, honestly, like Charlotte was portrayed as a hero on SmackDown for what she did to Ronda Rousey, when in reality, Charlotte hitting Ronda Rousey with a Singapore cane, as awesome as it was, if we're jumping into storyline... When Charlotte hit Ronda Rousey with the Singapore cane, it added another win to the Raw side and really strengthened that 0 on the SmackDown side. You know what I mean? And you would think that there'd be somebody on SmackDown that was going like, hey, I'm really pissed that Charlotte blew it. Hey, I'm really pissed that all you guys blew it. You know? Even Daniel Bryan. Now, the matches were all amazing. The pay-per-view was great. But I just mean storyline-wise, you would think there'd be somebody on SmackDown pissed that they lost every match, except that tag team match in the pre-show that we found out didn't count.
Oh.
You know, they went 0-6. That's the official word on everything. But beyond that, I think SmackDown is just a great cohesive show. They're doing a great job of combining storyline and wrestling. You know, I think they're just they're even in a good spot with the WWE Championship. I thought the whole AJ Samoa Joe story was really well told, really made me care about the matches. And Daniel Bryan turning heel, the promo, I talked about it on the show last week, but the promo he had last week was great. I wish he had been on SmackDown this week, but that's only because he was so good last week, you know? But I think that we're being reminded why we cheer for him. We're being reminded through sympathy why he's such a good guy, and he's really proving why he deserves to be champion in our minds. I thought Samoa Joe interrupting Jeff Hardy's speech. Like, I was sitting there going, I guess this is the spot for Randy Orton to interrupt this speech. But Randy Orton just ripped up Rey Mysterio's mask last week. He's kind of busy. What's going to happen here?
Same thought.
And then when Jeff Hardy is like, thank you all. Dun, dun, dun. Dun, dun. I was like, oh, cool. Yeah. And like, so everything Samoa Joe does is so real. When Shane McMahon stepped in front of him and was like, whoa, whoa, and Samoa Joe was just like, get out of my way. Like, really looked at him like, who the F do you think you are? Get the hell out of my way. And I was like, that's Samoa Joe, you know? And it made me believe, and he's not afraid to be a real bad guy. You know, he's not afraid to get on the mic and just be a bad person to make people go, I want to see him get his ass kicked. Samoa Joe, I read a statistic, has lost like every pay-per-view match that he's had for a year. It's been a year since Samoa Joe won a pay-per-view match, and nobody notices.
No.
You know why? Because he's so good at it. Like, usually that would really damage somebody. But when I tell you Samoa Joe's got a match, he still comes across as a major threat, right? Even though he loses all the time, you don't even acknowledge that he loses. He still comes across as a major threat. Yep. And that's because he's so good. I mean, he's made me not only, like, I want to see Jeff Hardy versus Samoa Joe at TLC because of that SmackDown promo. You know, I am interested in Randy Orton versus Rey Mysterio. On paper, Randy Orton versus Rey Mysterio is kind of like, okay, like, that could be cool. But based on the last 2 weeks of SmackDown, I'm like, Ray has a score to settle here. I want to see that match now. Mm-hmm. You know, and that's invaluable. Becky Lynch is the hottest thing in wrestling right now. You know,
strong.
The hottest thing in wrestling right now. Becky Lynch is hotter than the Elite is. You know, than the Young Bucks are. It's all Becky Lynch right now.
This is very strong.
Her moment, and she's within reach of being unanimously the biggest main roster star in WWE, not female, the biggest star. That's Becky Lynch is the athlete people are talking about. Like, when you talk to people that don't watch WWE anymore, that did at one point, that don't anymore, they all are like, yeah, but I'm interested in what this Becky Lynch is doing.
Really?
100%. I mean, I've literally had the conversations. Ariel Helwani was just talking about it on the MMA show.
I think that's great, but you're going to put her over Rousey right now?
Absolutely.
Really?
I mean, listen to the audience. They booed Ronda.
Yeah, but you just said a non-wrestling audience.
Yeah, but listen to the WWE audience.
Oh my gosh, it's huge.
They care about Becky more.
Which I think is interesting to watch the last 2 months transpire to hit that point.
Right. It's real life and it's organic. With Becky.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what, yeah.
But getting cheered.
But even a non-wrestling audience becomes aware when there's somebody who's like, when it's somebody who's like Becky Lynch, like Ronda Rousey, you expect. Like, don't get me wrong. A non-wrestling audience is still very interested in Ronda Rousey. A wrestling audience still very interested in Ronda Rousey. The Ronda Rousey experiment, let's call it, has been nothing but success. Like, Ronda Rousey's amazing. She has taken to this stuff so well.
Yep.
Like,
agree.
Ronda Rousey is going to take the women's division has taken the women's division to the mainstream. Like, this is it. Ronda Rousey is that last step that the women in the WWE needed to take that division to that level. But it can't just be Ronda Rousey fighting the women of the WWE. You've actually developed an opponent in Becky Lynch that people are interested in. Like, if you were to tell me that it's Becky Lynch versus Ronda Rousey at WrestleMania, a mainstream audience is not sitting there saying Ronda Rousey versus some WWE girl. They're saying, oh, that's she calls herself the Man. Like, oh, that's interesting. Like, oh, that's that Becky Lynch I keep hearing about. It's happening, you know? And it's amazing to see because it's not happening with other people at this moment. It has. But at this moment, Becky Lynch is the standout on both shows.
I feel it fair to give Charlotte a little of that spotlight,
She
too.
was amazing on SmackDown.
No, but there's no was. I think it's a current. I think it's what Charlotte has done to this day for the women's division. I think she's as mainstream as you're giving Becky Lynch, if not more.
It's less.
Oh, I disagree with you.
I mean, you're going to see the Man t-shirts everywhere you go. You're not seeing Do It With Flair t-shirts everywhere you go.
You're seeing more people know who Charlotte Flair is.
Incorrect.
Subjective.
You'll see more people who know the name Flair, but not Charlotte.
Oh, another strong disagreement.
I mean,
I think she has paved her own path, undeniably.
I love Charlotte. Like, this isn't shade being thrown.
I understand.
But Charlotte is like, Charlotte for a long time has been the flag bearer for the women's division. Like, for a long time, I would say Charlotte is as close to a John Cena as the women's division has, right? Like Charlotte is the standard bearer for the women's division. But Becky Lynch is becoming a bigger star than most of the men on the roster. And she's right there, but she doesn't surpass the men on the roster in terms of like fame. You know?
So that's a debate right there.
Yeah, I love it. And I think that Charlotte is, and look, Becky, I think, is the one that is really making the difference. I think Charlotte is completely stepping up to the plate and showing that she's just as good. I think Ronda's right there.
What planet are we on right now?
I mean, all you got to do is watch the show.
I do. Clearly.
Yeah.
You're making a very bold statement right now.
Oh, yeah.
You're almost you're saying that Charlotte's got to work to get to where Becky is right now.
In this moment? Yeah, for sure.
I'm not seeing eye to eye with you.
Let me ask you. Survivor Series. The Charlotte Ronda match that happened, 3 from the top was right where it should have been on the card, right? By the way, great match.
This isn't a fair assessment, though, because
no
that
build?
was like a...
That's fair. No, you're right.
No
build up. But
oh, go ahead.
Becky Lynch, Ronda Rousey has become a bigger match. Even now, there's been build up.
But I don't think that's fair because I think the Charlotte story would have lived at a different time. I think it had to happen too quickly. I don't think those are two parallels.
But now there's been build up with Charlotte, right? Because we've had this match that had no real resolution. They've gone back and forth on TV.
Uh-huh.
It's still not as big a match if you announce that it's Ronda versus Becky.
But but again, I stand firm on that. I don't think that's fair because it was thrown into a time where it shouldn't have been thrown into.
So that kind of screwed everything
it kind
up.
of eclipses the whole...
We have to reassess the way we look at everything.
Correct.
Okay. Now, I'll tell you what I thought about the women's division. To me, the women's division is the best thing on SmackDown. The WWE Championships, everything is great on SmackDown. Almost everything is great on SmackDown. They're doing good with the tag teams. I think that going back to highlighting the Usos again, awesome, because they're so good. The WWE Championship story, as I said, is great. But I think that the women's division, to me, is the most compelling. They announced Charlotte versus Becky TLC in a TLC match, which I said, that's amazing, right? I love that. I didn't think I needed another Becky versus Charlotte match, but I'm on board. And then they said, actually, we're going to have a battle royal, and we're going to make it a triple threat. And I went, I don't know. When Asuka came out, it was the same thing that happened to her at Survivor Series. It was like, Asuka's another one. Well, you know how much I love Asuka. Uh-huh. Like, you've known this for a long time.
Yep.
And I'm so happy to see that even though she hasn't done all that much since WrestleMania, not one fan is forgotten. Right? Like when Asuka comes out, even if she's not in a position to be the Asuka of old, no fan has accepted that. Like the reaction that Asuka gets is so much different. Asuka's right there with Charlotte and Becky is what I'm saying. You know what I mean? Even though she's kind of cast in the sort of general, here's the women in the division, Asuka's one of them. I think most of the fans know that Asuka deserves to be in that upper echelon of the division. Is that fair to say, do you think?
I don't think she's as big as Charlotte and Becky. I feel the same way. I think she's amazing.
Right.
Goes without saying. I don't know if I'd put her at that level.
Well, here's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
So she gets put into the triple threat.
Yep.
It's Asuka versus Becky versus Charlotte. And immediately I said, fantastic. Fantastic. Here's what happens in the world of Sam Roberts, the last professional broadcaster.
Okay.
The triple threat, first of all, you can have an amazing match with these three women. Obviously, Becky doesn't mind throwing fists, right? We know Charlotte doesn't mind throwing fists. She was raised right by that dad of hers who, he'll get in there and scrap. Mm-hmm. And clearly, Asuka, the queen of strong style, doesn't mind kicking somebody as hard as she can in the face.
Where are you going with this, Sam?
Meaning this is going to be an incredible match. It's going to be a great TLC, brutal match. It's going to be great. What I would like to see is Asuka to shock the world. I don't think anybody sees this coming at this moment as we speak. Asuka should leave TLC the SmackDown Women's Champion.
You're crazy.
Okay, that's what I was looking for, Linendoll. That's what I was hoping you'd say.
No, you're crazy.
Okay, well, you want to stick with me on this one?
I do, but I also.
Or do you want to
hit?
You want to hit me? You want to hit me with your rebuttal now?
No,
Okay.
I'm still have one sentence to make though, and I gotta get it out of my system.
Say your sentence.
Okay, and then it's a little bit of a digression, just so hear me out.
That's fine.
The comparison you made with Becky and Charlotte. And sorry. Let me just come back for a second. Who's getting all the covers of magazines? Who's getting all the mainstream media press?
Getting or got?
Getting.
Got.
Okay. Stan, prove me wrong on that.
Okay, because I'll say got.
Really?
Yeah.
You're already there.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I mean, look,
I disagree.
The Becky thing is new.
No, you're wrong.
But we've never
wrong.
seen anything like Becky before.
No, and I don't want to sound like the bad guy here because I think where it's going
Razor
is
Ramon?
amazing. But I don't think it's there.
Okay, it is. But so.
Okay, we go back to where we were.
Okay, because you already. First, I was crazy for what I said about Becky and Charlotte, and now I'm sitting here telling you Asuka needs to
you're
leave with the
making
championship.
crazy statements.
And you're like, what the hell is going on with you, Robert?
Yeah. Are you on like bath salts?
I'll tell you. Yes, I'm about to eat your face. Listen. So, Asuka, we need to be reminded how good Asuka is. Because we haven't been since WrestleMania. Leading up to WrestleMania, she was undefeated forever. Like, there was a really good chance she was going to beat Charlotte at WrestleMania. There was half the audience said, I think Asuka's going to win. Half the audience said, I think Charlotte's going to win.
It's actually hard to think back to that
Exactly.
point. I have to give you that, you know?
Right. Because since WrestleMania, that's been swept under the rug. So, based on the fan reaction that she gets, that leads me to believe that everybody knows, everybody remembers, she won the Royal Rumble, Asuka. You remember in January? She won the Royal Rumble. The first ever Women's Royal Rumble was won by Asuka. You know? And that's, again, something that, Asuka of this moment, she doesn't strike you as the woman who won the Royal Rumble this year, does she?
It's weird to think that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I think we need to be reminded of that, and we would effectively be reminded of that if Asuka won the SmackDown Women's title. Now, triple threat rules. What does that mean? To become the champion, do you have to beat the champion? No. Asuka should pin Charlotte at TLC. Okay? Asuka leaves with the championship after pinning Charlotte. She never beat the champion. You protect Becky. Becky is still the man because she never even got beat. She lost the title, but she didn't get beat. Charlotte got pinned. Now, there's some kind of chicanery. Like, Asuka got a lucky pin, right? This isn't Asuka laid out Charlotte and is declared the winner. Asuka, just the timing was right. Maybe Becky hit Charlotte with something, and Asuka rolled her up or grabbed the... I don't know if it's going to be ladder match rules or not, but, Becky and Charlotte laid each other out, and Asuka ran up and grabbed the title.
Maybe a little ref gate.
Could be ref gate. Let's get Chuck Robinson involved. You know what I mean?
Screwing it up.
He screws it up every time.
Everything.
But this way, what are you left with? You're left with Asuka defending the title at the Royal Rumble, right? Theoretically.
Okay.
Unless she doesn't defend the title at the Royal Rumble. You're left with Charlotte saying, Asuka, you got lucky. I beat you at WrestleMania. You got a lucky win at TLC. I want my rubber match with you. I want my third match with you because I want that title. Becky, but you didn't beat me, Asuka. I want the title. I want the title match. At the same time, Ronda's over here. She's done with Nia Jax, Charlotte and Becky and Ronda and Asuka, and now it's all kind of figuring out who's who. So where does this leave us? This leaves us at the second annual Women's Royal Rumble. And now you've got a potential of putting Charlotte and Becky in the Royal Rumble. Could you tell me right now who Ronda Rousey is going to face at WrestleMania? Or could you narrow it to two?
You go first.
It's either Charlotte or Becky. But you can't...
That's kind of a gimme, though, right?
Of course. But you can't call it between the two. Because the stories are still active with both. Right?
Okay.
Like, it could... What I'm saying is it could be either of those two. Would you go with me on that?
Yes.
Definitely. So now... And, by the way, not only do we know as fans that it could be either of those two with a match with Ronda at WrestleMania, But both of those two also have a problem with Asuka from TLC. So now we're in the Royal Rumble, and we've got Becky and Charlotte. We don't know who's going to win, because one of them is clearly going to fight Asuka. One of them is clearly going to fight Ronda, but we don't know who's who. So the Royal Rumble is what's going to leave us with the opportunity to have that. I put Becky as the winner. Becky challenges Ronda Rousey. Because we don't know. I mean, as we're sitting there at the Royal Rumble, we're watching. I hope she challenges Ronda Rousey, but she very well may challenge Asuka, because we know that the Charlotte versus Ronda match might happen as well. But she doesn't. She challenges Ronda, and now we're left with a WrestleMania where we've got a rematch between Asuka and Charlotte from last year. One of the best WrestleMania matches of the year last year. And we've walked our way into Becky Lynch versus Ronda Rousey. If Asuka wins the title at TLC, we can organically get to a WrestleMania where it's Becky Ronda and it's Charlotte Asuka.
That's a far projection.
But does it work?
But strong.
Thank you. Thank you. Wouldn't you be excited for WrestleMania if I told you those were the two women's title matches?
I'm excited for WrestleMania right now.
The number one story of the week is Monday Night Raw.
One fall. I wanted to do I was counting all of them down, sort of, half of them.
You didn't do that? Not out loud, though?
I did two, and I did. All right.
Did you?
Yeah.
I didn't even hear it. I didn't even pick up on it.
I kind of just deflated.
So there was a lot of criticism about Raw this week. I definitely think SmackDown was clearly a better show, but look. We could either, and I do want to do, I saw WWE put out an Instagram post where it's the top 5 men in wrestling, and it was the Man, Becky Lynch, was number 1. The Big Boss Man was on the list. The $1 Million Man was on the list.
Oh.
And I like that list.
Repo Man?
He wasn't on the top 5. Oh. I was going to reorder it, because you guys know I like to reorder those top 5 lists on this show. We don't have time to do it this week. I might do it next week.
Okay, that'd be fun.
Yeah, I definitely want to do it at some point. But I thought it was more important to address Raw and criticisms of it that people had. And instead of picking apart Raw and going this is why it sucked, I don't like this show, this is why the ratings are in the toilet. Because that's not, I never have been that guy. I don't like doing that. I thought we should redo Raw. Let's look at what's on the plate for Raw and how we can reorganize a lot of it to make it into a show that is can't miss.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
I thought a lot about it, believe it or not.
This is cool. Okay, go for it.
Okay, so I think it's a little bit of a mess right now because, and this has happened on Raw before, you've kind of got 2 main event storylines in the sense that you've got Rollins and Ambrose over here. You've got Corbin and Braun over here. The Universal title is not in play, which makes it awkward. And these 2 stories aren't really in play with each other. Also, Braun Strowman's injured and we don't know if he's going to be at the pay-per-view. So it's trying to figure all this out. You get why it could be messy.
Does he count as a man too, by the way?
Braun?
Yeah.
Well, he's a monster among men, so no.
But in the top 5 list. Is he that count?
Because the $1 Million Man, the monster among men?
No, Braun Strowman. It was a late thought, but...
That's awesome.
Accurate.
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Strowman is a man. Oh, I'm glad you're here, because I think I got to add that to my list now. So, I think there is a lot of work that needs to be done.
Okay, go for it.
So, I think that after this week, no more mention of Braun Strowman. Maybe he'll be at the pay-per-view, maybe he won't, but just no more mention of it because people are so sick. We're losing a lot of guys. Roman disappeared. You just see when it's injuries or sicknesses or whatever it is, when guys leave unexpectedly, it's difficult for fans to adjust to that. And I think that it needs to feel not like we're figuring out as we go, or we're leaving it needs to not feel like we're leaving our options open. I want to watch Raw and feel every week whether I know what the direction is or not, there is a solid direction going here. I think that because Braun is at least injured, and now there is a possibility that he's not going to make the TLC pay-per-view, I think that next week when we start Raw, we need to have an interaction. Right now, the heel faction is Baron Corbin, Bobby Lashley, Drew McIntyre. I don't know why Drew stopped hanging out with Dolph all of a sudden, but he doesn't hang out with the guy anymore.
Right.
It is what it is. And, of course, the amazing Lio Rush. By the way, I know people think it's stupid. I like the Bobby Lashley glute gimmick where he leans over and shows everybody his butt. I think that that's funny. Like, I think it's so odd and weird that I'm like, I find that entertaining.
Of course you do.
I think that that's funny.
Of course you do.
That Bobby Lashley is basically doing the Ace Ventura butt talk gimmick. Like, I think that I'd like that. I think it's funny. Me personally.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'm the only one.
Catering to people just like you, Sam.
Well, I'm a wrestling fan.
Yep.
I would hope that they are. So, I think here's what I would love to see happen is we get to Raw next week, and Baron Corbin is really acting like the boss of this group. And he is really bossing around Drew McIntyre and Bobby Lashley, right? Just really like classic heel, I'm the boss, you guys do what I say type of stuff, right? And that's how we start the show. And then we start to get the feeling towards the end of that first hour that Drew and Bobby are not cool with that, right? And Drew and Bobby are like talking to each other. And then as the second hour goes on, we hear, Drew and Bobby are talking, we need to do something about this. Maybe we need to prove to Baron who the real man is, who's really in charge here. You know what I mean? And there's that sort of like, uh-oh, Baron may have overstepped here, right? And we get the feeling that we've got some kind of six-man main event. We've got some main event where all three guys are going to be teaming together. But now, Baron, being unaware that he is, doesn't realize that Bobby and McIntyre are not happy with him and are probably going to turn on him tonight. And the fans are going like, yeah, I'm down for that. Good, I don't like Baron Corbin, right? So, there's chicanery involved in the tag match. Baron Corbin is tagging at inconvenient times. He's just doing typical heel, boss stuff. Where if it's a scary guy, he's not tagging in. If somebody's about to get the pin, he reaches and does the tag that nobody asked for type of stuff, right? I think that at the end of the match, the bad guys lose. Maybe Drew McIntyre gets pinned or something because Baron wasn't there to save him. And Bobby Lashley and Drew finally bow up to Baron Corbin, or bow up, or whatever the expression is. They look like they're going to kick his ass. And people go, oh, this is it. This is what we've been waiting for. And all of a sudden, Bobby turns on Drew. And Baron turns on Drew. And Bobby and Baron start putting the boots to Drew McIntyre. I think that we accelerate the babyface good guy turn of Drew McIntyre. I think that we do Corbin versus McIntyre at the pay-per-view. Braun, even if he's better by the pay-per-view, bring Braun back the night after the pay-per-view, heading towards the Royal Rumble, because he's not going to be there to lead up to the pay-per-view anyway. So for TLC, change the match. Stephanie comes out the week after and says, at TLC, to be the general manager, you're going to now have to beat Drew McIntyre. Because clearly we're heading in that direction anyway, right? At some point, Drew McIntyre is going to be a good guy. I mean, he's the guy, he's everything WWE's been looking for, and he's in not only the best shape, but mentally, he's in the best place that he's ever been in to be that person. So I would accelerate that. I would do Corbin versus McIntyre at TLC, have McIntyre win, and then go on to have a rivalry with Bobby Lashley. Braun Strowman can come back after the pay-per-view and restart his rivalry with Baron Corbin until we get to WrestleMania, where fits around with Baron Corbin for a while as we head towards Brock Lesnar versus Braun Strowman for the Royal Rumble. And you're sitting there going, well, if Drew McIntyre beats Baron Corbin, he just lost his position as Raw General Manager. And you're right, Linendoll. He's not Raw General Manager anymore because Alexa Bliss is now given control of the entire show. Baron Corbin is the bitter ex-general manager, maybe even assigned to be Alexa's assistant by Stephanie McMahon. And Alexa is now the full-time general manager of Monday Night Raw. I think you go over to the women's division, and you know, clearly there were issues with the Tamina, Nia Jax, Ronda Rousey whole segment on Raw. Like, it just didn't click. And I think we need to be brought up to speed with the fact that Tamina is a real threat. You know, it's been so long since we've seen Tamina do significant things. I think we need to see Tamina kick the crap out of Ronda Rousey backstage. I think we need to see Tamina become this real threat. We already know Nia's a threat. She broke Becky Lynch's face. So I want to know that Tamina is not just her friend, but also somebody that could take out Ronda on her own. I think we need to get to Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins. And Dean Ambrose needs to go back to being dangerous, like lunatic fringe, in the sense that he's doing kind of what Tamina's doing. At any given moment, he could just sneak up. He's not running away from Seth Rollins. He's actively looking to hurt Seth Rollins.
In getting his flu shots.
Yeah. No more flu shots.
You know?
No more flu shots where he's cringing at needles.
He's being proactive.
No, I know. He's got those vaccines. They're important. Mm-hmm. I got my vaccines too.
I didn't know the rabies one came in the hip.
It is. Well,
okay.
Do you not have a rabies vaccine?
I thought I did.
You look into it.
I'm sure I do with all my travels.
I would hope so, especially with all your travels.
I can't keep them straight. You should see my forms.
Well, yeah. I want to see your hip and see a puncture wound in it from a rabies vaccine. But I think that Dean should be around every corner, not hiding behind every corner. I think that he should be there looking to hurt Seth Rollins, and I think we should get more clarification behind the attack. We still don't really know why Dean turned on Seth, and I'm starting to get worried that it's not going to be explained. You know, I think that Dean should call Seth out and say, like, you know, when I saw you cry those crocodile tears when Roman announced what Roman announced, it just reminded me what a phony you were. You're the one who turned on Roman Reigns, and now you're crying because of what happened to him, blah, blah, blah. Like, you know, take on that thing. So it's not just like, yeah, I'm a crazy guy who beat you up. Like, let me know that you don't buy the fact, because when you look at that shot, Rollins is crying, Ambrose is not crying.
That doesn't...
But
Some people aren't as emotional.
Look, it's on TV. It's safe for storyline.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
right. So Ambrose can sit there and almost be defensive about the fact that he wasn't crying and accuse Seth Rollins of faking it. Because he's a bad guy. That's what a bad guy would do. That's a bad guy. Not a nice thing to do, is it? It's a rotten thing to do. To see somebody in their time of grief and be like, you're not that sad. Like, is that cool or no?
Well, you know how I feel about this storyline. So
look, we're already there.
I know.
We're already there. It's not cool. But Ambrose isn't cool. He's the lunatic fringe. Remind me that he's a lunatic fringe. And let's have Renee objecting a little bit to what he's doing.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Not just saying, I don't know what he's doing. Be like, oh my God, I don't, like, get a little concerned. I don't know this guy. You know what I mean? That's what I want to hear from Renee. I don't know who this guy is. This isn't the guy that I met. We're obviously acknowledging that there's that connection there, right? Like on commentary. Like it's saying without saying that we are acknowledging that they're married. So let's have Renee kind of be worried herself.
Well, she did say she lives with a guy and he's not always predictable.
Right, but not with worry. Like Renee did it with a sense of like, I know something that I'm not telling you, which is one route to go. I didn't have a problem with it, but I would rather see her almost like scared. Like, who is this person? You know what I mean? Because it's so, like, if you're going to take something so sacred and make an angle out of it, you got to go all the way. Otherwise, it's for naught, if that makes sense. I think that Mustafa Ali should have been the Seth Rollins mystery opponent. I think that we should see a Mustafa Ali versus Seth Rollins match on Raw just because it would be such a good match. You know, I don't think Mustafa Ali should be the Intercontinental Champion, but I think that, you know, I think they should be doing more with Mustafa Ali on that show. Like, he's so good. He represents a portion of the population that's not represented on Raw. And I just think that I would have Seth this week come out and do another open challenge and have Mustafa Ali answer it. Do a good 2-segment, 3-segment match where everybody looks at Mustafa Ali differently. And then Dean Ambrose comes in and just ruins it for everybody. Why not? You know?
Can I press pause on one item that you hit from the top?
Yeah.
You're giving a lot of power to this Baron Corbin situation.
He's the general manager.
I know.
It should be it is what it is. I mean, that's the storyline.
I'm kind of surprised it resurfaced as heavily as it is.
The general manager position is it's the Stephanie McMahon storyline. I mean, how could that be secondary?
With Baron Corbin?
Well,
I'm asking you.
Right now, yes. But in order to not be with Baron Corbin, make it about Drew McIntyre.
But then you extended it all the way. You extended it. If you kept Baron in there, even if you were to get rid of him in the general manager position.
Well, I like Baron Corbin.
You like him in that position?
He's a good bad guy.
That's a headline position.
He's a good bad guy. He's big. He's mean. People boo him. And he's a decent wrestler. He's a good wrestler. People don't like him. That's rare. You know what I mean? Like, there's not that many bad guys that people don't like. People don't like Baron Corbin.
All right.
And that's why, for me, I'm like, yeah. Like, I would absolutely keep Baron Corbin at the top of the card as a bad guy. And he loses a lot because he's a bad guy. Like, that's what he's there for. But people, I think, will pay to see Baron Corbin get beaten up.
If not in that GM position anymore, you still think, to your point, you're going to keep him.
I think he's a good foil for Braun Strowman, in the sense that he's a big guy, too. It looks impressive when Braun Strowman beats up Baron Corbin.
Really?
For the time being. I mean, it's not WrestleMania main event.
All right.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
But yeah.
Resume.
Okay. I think you got to pick a tag team and go with it. There is so much stop and start with the tag team division. I would put a lot of money behind the Revival right now. I mean, you know, people forget that they had match of the year in NXT. Like, do you remember watching them in NXT? You don't.
Yes, but not heavily.
Right.
There's not heavy memories there.
But guess what? They were the best tag team in NXT.
No.
They literally won match of the year. They literally won match of the year in NXT. And that's a pretty major accomplishment. You know, I mean, they were a really hot commodity in NXT.
What do you do differently?
You have them win a whole bunch. You don't have them win one week and lose the next week, and one week they beat this big team and the next week they lose to Lucha House Party, and, like, you know what I mean? That's what I mean about picking one. You got to start showing some dominant teams. And I would put the Revival as a dominant team. Not put the tag titles on them, you know, right away. I would turn Bobby Roode heel right away. I would say that, you know, let the Authors of Pain, Bobby Roode, Chad Gable thing continue, but get to a pay-per-view or some kind of headline where Bobby Roode turns on Chad Gable and says, why didn't you stop him from pissing on my robe, or whatever he has to say. But I think Bobby Roode has to be a heel at this moment. You know, and now, honestly, I think it would be good for Chad Gable because it would maybe make Chad Gable sympathetic, and I think Chad Gable's the man. I know you like Chad Gable a lot. So, you know, I think that could be a good position for Chad Gable as well if he now had a rivalry with Bobby Roode. And finally, because Seth Rollins is such a big star, I think Seth Rollins should be the guy to fight Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania.
Wow.
In order to get there, the Intercontinental title has to go off of him. I think that we get, after TLC, we get the Intercontinental title back on Dolph Ziggler, and that's where Finn Balor goes. We have a nice little Intercontinental title chase between Finn Balor and Dolph Ziggler, because otherwise Finn Balor gets lost in the sauce a lot. You know, and that, I think, it'd be good matches. It would be something good to do with the IC title. Dolph Ziggler is on the risk of getting lost in the sauce because he doesn't have Drew McIntyre by his side anymore. And I think that if you go there, you got something. So now, you know, that's where I have it. Tamina cemented as a badass. Dean Ambrose is a violent, brutal lunatic with a reason behind what he's doing. Drew McIntyre is a good guy who's going to beat Baron Corbin. Alexa Bliss for general manager. The Revival for a tag team to be reckoned with. Bobby Roode turns on Chad Gable. Mustafa Ali gets highlighted more. Finn Balor versus Dolph Ziggler for that Intercontinental title. Eventually, Seth Rollins versus Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania, with Seth Rollins winning the Universal title clean from Brock. That's how I felt watching Raw.
That was strong, dude.
That
was strong. That was thought out.
Yes.
It was organized.
That's what I'd like to see. I think it'd be cool.
Well done.
Cool.
Well done.
Cool. You agree with it? You're okay with it?
I think it was strong. I don't agree with all parts.
It's a lot of parts.
Yeah.
A lot of parts.
Yeah, there's some Tetris happening.
Yeah.
There, the long white piece isn't coming in just yet. But I see where you're going.
But it'll get there.
Yeah.
Well, if anybody knows Tetris, it's tech expert Katie Linendoll. Katie, of course, they can find you on Twitter and Instagram at Katie Linendoll. Where else can they get a hold of you?
Oh, my goodness. I'm in crazy holiday season.
That's right.
I'm all over TV, from Today Show to Rachel Ray to Weather Channel.
You got gifts?
CBS Sports Radio. Oh, my gosh, it's gifting season.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got a website?
Katie.gifts.
I thought so.
Thank you for asking. In action for holiday.
Love it. Love
Yeah.
it. And that's the place to go to find gifts for whoever you need.
Yes.
All right. Well, Katie Linendoll, it's always a pleasure to have you here. We always get to the bottom of things, don't we?
We sure do.
I think so, too. Thank you very much. We will see you next time on Notsam Wrestling.
Thanks for listening. Follow at Notsam on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.
Rate, review, and subscribe. This has been Notsam Wrestling.
Chowski.